Hey, this is a video on how to take a cabinet door. These are some doors that I recently had made, and I primed them with a red primer and turned them into a weathered look, which is going to be something like this right here. As you can see, the weathered look, you're going to see a little bit of red showing through the black. The corners look worn and stuff like that. It's a look that's becoming more popular. It depends on the style you're going for. But I'm doing it in my cabinets in here, and so I figured I'd show you how to do it because I haven't seen any YouTube videos on how to do it yet. So if you know how to do it, maybe you should post something on there so I can learn from you. Anyway, first of all, you want to make sure your door is free from any dust. You're not wanting to have any extra nicks or dings in there, so make sure it's sanded good. A lot of times I'll take a piece of sandpaper and sand it off if I need to. And basically the tools we're working with here is we have a foam roller. It's just a standard foam roller. They're very cheap. You can buy them at Lowe's, Home Depot, any hardware store. It'll actually probably say for cabinets or trim. And then just a regular paintbrush. I prefer Worcester paintbrushes, but even Pro Impact works pretty good for our paintbrush. And so what you're going to do is after you've gotten your door dust free, I'm going to start on the inside, and I'm going to just very smoothly apply a layer of paint to these beads. I have beads in mine which take up a little bit more paint than the average cabinet door. So you want to make sure you're getting enough paint on your roller, because I'm going to come back through with an actual brush, with my paintbrush, and fill in these lines that you see here. Some people might like to try to leave the lines red like you're seeing right here, but for me, I'm going for a consistent pattern, and it's harder to be consistent when you're doing that. So I'm going to come back here with this brush, and I'm going to paint in the lines and cut in my corners here. It's good to have an angled brush. This brush may be a little bit big. It's a standard 2.5-inch paintbrush. For something like this, you might want to go down to like a 2-inch or maybe even an 1.5 inches. But you want to be careful to try to not get too much paint like in this area here. You want to leave that, because if that dries, you're going to have a line that will show through on your face. And you really, the whole point of cabinets is to have a very clean, smooth texture. If you're fast enough, which I think I should be pretty fast on this particular door, then you can catch that line before it starts to harden and be able to smooth it out pretty easy. So what I'm doing is I'm catching all my edges first, and I'm making sure I've got plenty of paint on my brush. One of the most novice things about painting trim and things like that of people who really haven't done a lot of painting is they don't put enough paint on their brush. And so they end up dragging paint around and leaving lines. And then you always want to paint back onto your own strokes. Long, smooth strokes. So a lot of times you'll get your base, which is a little bit thicker, and then you can just brush it out. But don't play with it very much, or you'll end up taking your lines back out. So I'm trying to keep very even lines here. And just leave it like that. Don't play with it too much, because you'll regret it later on. So now I'm going to take this foam roller and carefully, not trying to get too much on, but just very carefully working with smooth strokes. Just cover this face frame, they call it. And I'm going to do that all the way around, so I'm going to be catching any paint that I have gotten on from cutting in. I'm going to be catching and making sure I smooth it out very quickly to avoid any bumps. I want a very smooth surface. And as you can tell, it doesn't really take long. It's not a hard process, and it's not near as scary as it tends to be when you're going in. I hadn't seen any videos on this. I just seen some pictures of doors that were done already. And so I've had to kind of experiment myself and learn the best way to go about painting. So anyway, I've got my face done here. I'm going to double check. I can see an area right here where I didn't quite catch it all the way with the brush. I'm going to go back, brush that out, check my other areas here. And since I have all this paint still wet, it'll still coat very good. Check the areas. And since you're going for a rustic look, then a lot of times, you know, it helps if there's a little spot here and there that's not perfect. The main thing you're wanting is consistency, though. That's what's going to make your cabinet doors look like you actually meant them to look. Okay, so I've got the face done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this edge and this edge here with the roller as well. The main thing is you don't want to put too much on there. You just want consistency, long strokes, just like that. And watch out for runs, things like that. It's good to be able to work with the cabinet door at the right level, so you're not having to bend over too much. I've got like 18 doors here, maybe 17. And so having them at the right height really helps you be able to work with them and be efficient, so you're not, you know, having to always be moving things around and stuff like that. And paint is always better to work with when it's wet. So if you can be consistent and be efficient and get it all coated while everything is still very wet, then you're going to have a much better final product. This is my last edge here, and as you can see, the camera can zoom in on here. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure and carefully going over this edge. Smooth strokes, and you just want to be careful to have the same consistency everywhere. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a real consistent approach. So now that I've got it all coated, that's where the weather look comes in. And basically, you're going to get a rag, any standard ordinary rag, just like this here, and you want to get it damp. You don't want it to be wet, but fairly damp. And so what you're going to do is, for me, since I've got a little reveal here, I'm going to put the edge of my rag on here, and I'm just going to wipe off. But you can only wipe a little section off before your rag over here. If you look at my rag, you're going to see how the paint gets, it almost starts brushing the paint back on. So you have to keep rolling your rag so as to avoid almost like using your rag as a brush, because you're really trying to take paint off is what you're trying to do. So as you can see, I keep rolling my rag like this as I go along. And I'm trying to stay more on the side, not on the face itself. I'm wanting to avoid the face here and catch more of the side to get that rustic look of that red showing through. Some people would prefer like a white showing through. Others maybe want just like the bare wood showing through. It depends on your own personal preference, what your kitchen has. As you can see, I'm going to do it the same over here. You won't be able to see it as good. But you're just going to roll that edge. Keep rolling your rag, and make sure your rag's taking off the paint. It's not just smearing it on. Almost got that done. I'm going to do this side real fast here. And it does take a little bit of time getting used to it and getting a pattern down. I've definitely found this is a lot easier than trying to sand it off afterwards. The few things I have researched about it, which is not a lot online that I've found, is some people will paint it and then use sandpaper to wipe it back off. But basically, if you can get it while